All right, welcome back ET120 students. This is going to be a video for Wednesday, would be September 30th, maybe? Today's 28th, 29, 30, yeah, September 30th. So we're going to continue on. You did a lettering exercise last time, and this time you're going to do some sketching. So I want to talk about actual sketching and technique. I want to talk about the book a little because I guess we have a little problem with the book and the bookstore. But that's all right. We can work our way through it. I want to talk about measuring and architect versus engineering scale a little bit because you have to do some measuring on this exercise. And then we're going to focus on parallelism, so keeping things parallel. All right. So sketching is super important. They actually talk about it in the first few pages of the book, and then they move away from it and really get into the instruments and the triangles and how to make angles and how to draw straight lines. And then it's not until chapter 5 that they come back to sketching. But of course, that's not the flow I want. I want us to sketch first, and then we'll move to instruments. So I'm going to jump around the book a little bit. The assignments will jump around the book. If you have edition 8, I have edition 7. If you have edition 8, I think the content will be pretty much exactly the same, and maybe even the assignments will be the same number. They're definitely in your book, so I'm going to show you where they're at in edition 7, and I bet in edition 8 you can find them no problem. So, all right, I'm going to swing the camera around, and we'll look at the book a little, and then we'll talk about sketching and your first pencil and paper exercise. Okay, so here we go. Let me get it adjusted up good, or at least better. All right, so early on page 7, it starts to talk about drafting standards, and drafting standards are why this class exists. You can make a drawing, but the important thing about the drawing that you're going to make is somebody else in this class or somebody else across town or me, I need to understand what you're making. So we need to have some kind of standard. And the book talks about these standards early in chapter 1. So you might look through there. There's a little bit of historical information about that. And then it kind of talks about drafting in general and the flow of drafting and the different styles. So most of this over here has to do with more of a pictorial type of drafting or more of a three-dimensional type of drafting, okay? Down here is where we're actually going to focus, which is called multi-view projection. Now, a projection is just a view of an object. It's where we look at an object and we project it onto a piece of paper. And what we're going to do in our projections, try and check that. What we're going to do in our projections is we're going to do straight line, very perfect parallel projections, right? These are perspectives where this is the true size and it gets smaller and it looks good. We're going to go true size to true size. We may scale it up and down, but our goal is to get true size and true shape on the paper, okay? All right, like I said, we're going to jump around a little bit. I'm going to start with technical sketching, which is chapter 5. So as I go through stuff today, if you want to reinforce that, you can do that by reviewing chapter 5 information. And there is a bunch of information in here that I am not going to cover. But at some point, I'll probably come back to it. Like, we will talk about scale quite a bit, and we'll actually talk about pencils and how to find different leads and different hardnesses. But the sketching we're going to focus on is this kind of technical sketching, okay? It's done a lot. Right in the very beginning of the book, they start to talk about idea sketching, right? And it's like, oh, they should start there. That's exactly where most projects start, is in the sketch phase. But then they don't. right? They head right off into CAD, like, oh, that's not even where we need to go. And then they head off into instrument drawing, which I don't want to do first, okay? We're going to sketch. So chapter 5. All right, so let's just talk about the basics of sketching, because I'm no artist. I don't expect you to be an artist. But if you do follow some basic guidelines in sketching, you can make some decent sketching, some decent sketches, okay? One of the most important features for the sketches that we're going to make is parallelism, which means these lines appear to be parallel. That's why this looks so good. These lines down here are parallel, top and bottom, and then they're 90 degrees to each other if they're supposed to be 90 degrees, right? So when we get into more advanced sketches, like three-dimensional sketching, this looks good because all of these lines are parallel, right? So we're going to really focus on this concept of parallelism in the beginning. Our first exercise is basically doing lines like this. We're going to do different setups, and it's a little complicated, so I'm going to go through it a little bit with you. But I want to talk about basic sketching first. How to get straight lines. You can see this motion here, and keep an eye on the end point. That's really important, which means you have to have a start point and an end point. And he's making small strokes. Small strokes will give you lines that look like this, and that's okay in a sketch. Again, back to this first concept sketch, right? There's no perfect straight lines there. And where they did actually just draw a line without making small strokes, it looks kind of goofy. Okay, so if you can kind of just work through the line in smaller strokes, it makes a lot of difference. I'm going to try to demonstrate this for you. So I'm going to use my engineering green paper. I'm actually going to tear it off the pad and just set it down and then sketch some lines. Use this green paper. I highly recommend it. First of all, I can see the lines coming through. So if I need a line this long, and I know its length, it's okay to take your scale, right, and lay it down and give yourself two marks. I'll go here, 2 inches, right? I'll get rid of this one. Good eraser is super important. All right, so it's okay to lay the scale down and boom, boom, put some marks down. That's fine. This is a 2-inch line. But when you go to draw it, get rid of the straight edge, and then let's put a sketch in. And what I do is I kind of give myself a start and an end spot, and then I work it. Small strokes from one spot to the other. All right, 1 minute. Okay, sorry about that. I had to do full surgery on my pencil. All right, so since I did surgery on the pencil, this is the pencil I like. This is a 0.5. I actually prefer a 0.7. And the reason I like it is because it has the spin eraser. It gives you lots of erasing potential for drawing. All right, so we talked about sketches. So, vertical, horizontal, not so bad. And don't hesitate to do whatever you need to do, right, to make yourself a good line. You can rotate your paper, that works fine. And parallelism is what we're looking for, right? So, and then we are looking for some line quality. We want these lines to be the same, thickness-wise, okay? All right, so then if we're off at an angle, however you have to figure your angle out, maybe it's 2 over, right, from there to there, and then 1 up. Maybe that's the geometry. So now I have a start point here That's why I don't like 0.5. And an end point. Right? So I got my start and my end. This is where they're talking about keep your eye on where you're going. So I'm going to go from here to here. And what I do is I put starting lines at each end, right? But then when I'm going from here to here, I'm looking at this point as I'm trying to get there. That will make a very straight line for sketching. Start point, end point, look at the point you're heading towards. Basic technique. Then if I was to put another line here and here that's parallel, when I sketch, I focus on this line and my separation between those. So I can get parallel lines, but I have to think about, as I'm drawing this line, I have to look at this and stay the same distance away. It is a little bit tricky. All right, the exercise that you're going to do in edition 7 is on page 87. So it's this exercise here. And you're going to sketch it. And I know, you know and I know that that's not a sketch, right? These are CAD lines, printer lines, computer lines for sure. But you're going to sketch it, okay? And in the exercise that I put up on Blackboard, let's just see if we can find that real quick. ET120, this assignment would be for Wednesday. And here is A2, and here's the same graphic, okay? So I'll refer to it in the book, and I'll give you the information in Blackboard for a while until we have it for sure. But you can see that I identified 7 inches outside to outside and 10 inches outside to outside. So that's your starting size. Okay? Now they talk about using A2 or A42 adjusted and then divided into 6 equal working spaces. So that's what you're going to do. The A2 and the A42, that's referring to the front cover, and it's referring to title blocks. So really, that's referring to this title block here, which I do want you to include. I want you to put the word lines here, and I want you to put your name in there. And notice how straight and clean these are. That's because they used guidelines. So give yourself guidelines for the text. This is a scale, 1 to 1. This is the date, kind of close. We're more like 9/28 and not really 96. This would be the file location. We can leave that blank. And this would be the page numbers. We have 1 page. All right, so let's talk about these 6 areas because it can be a little tricky to lay them out. You're just going to sketch the lines, not the text. So no text, no dimensions, just the lines. Okay? First one's pretty easy. It says use bow dividers. You don't have bow dividers, but we just want 8 equal spaces. So after you take your 10 by 7 and put down a space for the title block, and you can find that spacing back here in the Form 1 title block, maybe the Form 2 title block, this one. Looks like maybe it's 0.38 or 3/8 of an inch. Sorry, 0.38. Right? And this looks like all the information. So it looks like a Form 2. A-size paper, that's 8.5 by 11, and Form 2 title block. So that's the A2. Anyway, you can get that spacing. Once you do that, then you break it into 6 equal spaces. So take this distance, which is no longer 7, right? It's 7 minus 3/8 of an inch. And divide by 2, and you got it. Right? And then take this distance, which is 10, and divide by 3, and you have these box sizes. All right. Once you do that, 8 equal spaces. So take this distance, measure it, use your calculator, divide by 8, and then lay them out, and sketch by hand all those lines. Yeah, for real. All right, this one looks like they just want them 1/2 inch apart. So what I would do is I would start in the middle with a 1/2 inch, because you're probably not going to end up with a whole 1/2 inch on these outsides. So start in the middle with a 1/2, and then go 1/2, 1/2, 1/2, 1/2, and then whatever you end up with out here. So do those 1/2 inch spaces as long as you can, okay? All right, then this one, it looks like we're going to go 30 degrees. So if you have your 30-60 triangle, right, you can lay your triangle down and put a mark here and here. They want you to start at the center, the geometric center of this box. And you can get that by crossing the corners. That gives you this little cross here. Boom, geometric center. Then the first line, I would use your triangle to give yourself a spot here and here, right? And that triangle is going to sit in here, you know, kind of on this straight line, right? And then sketch this first one, and then measure a 1/2 and a 1/2 and sketch it. 1/2, 1/2, sketch it, and just continue. All right, so that's the whole top. The bottom's even a little trickier, okay? So the bottom here, again, starting at the geometric center, this time they want you to go at 75 degrees. So first line here, and again, how do we get to 75? Well, they actually show you in this instrument area. Let's see if I can find it. How to put triangles together. I should have tabbed that page. I think I'm getting there. How to put triangles together to get any angle. That might have been right in the, oh, there they are. How to put triangles together to get any angles. And it looks like right there to get 75. A 45 and a 30, 60, 90 put together like that gets you 75. Okay? All right, so that is what you need to do. Or if you had a protractor, you could use a protractor too, right? To lay out 75 degrees. But again, from the center, 75, and then 1/2, 1/2, 1/2. And measure that, right? Like, use your scale and go, oh, that's a 1/2 inch. That's a 1/2 inch, and then boom, draw parallel, sketch parallel. Okay? All right, now, this one's a little more complicated. You're going to measure down a 1/2 inch. You're going to measure up a 1/2 inch to create this first line, right, through the geometric center. So find the geometric center by crossing corners of the big square, and then measure up a 1/2, measure down a 1/2, and then you have your first line, and then we're 1/2 inch, 1/2, 1/2. Again, sketch, sketch, sketch. This is going to take a while. This is going to take an hour plus, maybe 2 hours, to lay this out precisely with your scales, do some type measuring, right? And then do some sketching. Sketch nice and light in the beginning and then darken it later. Make sure you have it laid out correctly before you darken it up. It's very hard to erase darkened lines. All right, the last square, let's talk about that. Looks like we're going to start at the center. Looks like we're measuring up 0.62, so that's an engineer scale, 0.62, and down 0.62 to this perpendicular line. So this line you sketch in, and then we're going to go perpendicular to it, 1/2 inch of spacing. All right, so that one's even a little more tricky. All right, if you need help with any of this, because that's complicated, right? That's getting a little tricky. I can shoot more videos on this first lab if you need me to. Like maybe how to lay out box number 6, right? That last one, I can sketch. Let's make sure I'm on screen. I am. So let's say here's the box that you're going to start with. This would be the lower right box, this complicated one. I didn't get that very vertical, did I? I'm going to do better. Let's see how this looks. Something like that. That looks better. Looks better on your screen. All right. So this one, you measure down 6'2", measure up 6'2", and through the geometric center, right? So the way you get your center, I'll use red, is you cross it, right? You cross it. Yeah, I'm drawing it, boom, right there, center. All right. So now I went up 6'2" here, and I want to go through that center, so it's going to come through here like that, right? So this is really hard to do on a whiteboard, but I'm going to give it a try. Oh, that's not bad. So that's the starting perpendicular. Yeah. So then I would have to take a triangle, and I'd have to go, oh. Now I'm going to go perpendicular to that. It would be great if I had another color, like black. I don't see a black. All right. I guess I'll stick, oh, maybe a green. If this works, I'll use a green. All right. So now I'm going to start drawing, right? No, it looks like I maybe did this mirror image, but I think you get the point. So now I would use my triangle to set up perpendicular to that. Now, my rectangle might not be the same proportion as yours, so yours could end up slightly different. I get that. But give myself a starting point, the center, and maybe the other side here. And then that's going to be the lines that you set up. That's really hard to get off there. All right, this is going to be trickier. Oh yeah, no problem. So there's the first line, right? Then I would measure half and half. You know, you can give yourself a few of those if you want. Half. And then I'm going to work with parallelism. And I'm just going to continue. I would measure this, half, half, right? But right now, I'm just going to focus on sketching some parallel lines. All right, looking at the book, it looks like I flipped this. Like this construction line is down here, and flip it over. But that should help with the lower right-hand box to get you started. Kind of just walking you through it. The rest are tricky too, but not as tricky as that one. So, all right, good luck. Let me know how it goes. I'm interested in how long this takes you, so maybe time yourself. I think I made it worth 30 points, so it's worth quite a bit of points based on, you know, the other assignments that we will have. So, all right, good luck. Talk to you on Friday.